Our protagonist looks up at the blue sky and wonders about something. He thinks charging 8 gold coins for those herbs is an absolutely ridiculous price. He says this while watching a giant insect on a tree. Then he continues his walk through the forest, looking all around. He was wandering alone in the middle of that dense forest. Carrying a full bag, he stays alert to his surroundings. He finally finds the branch he was looking for and feels a wave of happiness. But after sniffing the plant, he figures it's only worth about 2 coins, and, annoyed, wishes he could make more money. This makes him let out a sigh of disappointment. He then wonders what he was even doing with his life when he was only 6, revealing he's been reincarnated. He remembers he just played Dragon Quest and Pokemon all day, and after these nostalgic memories, he decides to gather a bit more before leaving. As he wanders through the forest, he reflects on how bizarre it is to have become a person living inside an RPG. This new life began 6 years ago with a grand vision of the universe. That day he woke up startled, staring at an old wooden ceiling he'd never seen before. He starts to wonder where he is, worried about being late for the office. The boy tries to move, but realizes his body won't obey and his voice doesn't work right, leaving him full of questions about what's happening. But the real shock comes when he sees his own chubby little hand in front of him. It's clearly a baby's hand, causing our protagonist to panic without understanding a thing. Meanwhile, an unknown voice comments on how strange the child is for not crying. Watching the crib, the people conclude that he must just be a very calm baby. Then, an older man decides to pick up the child to get a better look at his face. Even without understanding a word of that strange language, our protagonist is certain that this man is his new father. In that moment, he realizes he went from being a 30-year-old corporate drone to being reborn as the noble, arid son Vale. Back in the present in the forest, he lets out a long, tired sigh, because putting a 6-year-old through manual labor is just absurd, proving that being a noble isn't all it's cracked up to be. After all, he was born into a poor, secondary family branch, so the dream of a life of luxury went right down the drain. The situation is so bad that even his father has to do odd jobs to supplement the family's income, and the thought of him having to glue eyes on dolls as a part-time job is just depressing. It just goes to show that being reincarnated in another world isn't such a cakewalk. But after living there for 6 years, he finally understood why Isekai protagonists never try to go back home. The reason was simple: having a child's body that doesn't obey and a strange language turned everything into a high difficulty challenge. And even though he'd played plenty of tough games, what he missed most was the home cooked food from his old life. It took him years to become a regular person in this world, but now our protagonist thinks everything has gotten way too easy. There's no company forcing him to show up an hour early, and he doesn't have to sprint to catch the last train. He stretches happily, thinking this must be the dream retirement life. It's so relaxing. But suddenly, a strange noise from the sky catches his attention. He hides behind a log and wonders if that was the sound of an explosion. Right after, a giant bear with glowing eyes appears, roaring menacingly. The creature then faces 2 adventurers who were preparing for a fight. One of them, who looks like a warrior, leaps toward the beast wielding a giant hammer. With all his strength, he smashes the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust to distract the bear. Meanwhile, the other adventurer, who looks like a mage, gets ready to cast a spell. The warrior then yells for his partner to attack, while the monster is busy. The mage seizes the opportunity to conjure a powerful fireball. It flies straight at the bear and causes a massive explosion. Hidden behind the tree, our boy is stunned. It's the first time he's seen magic up close. The black smoke clears, revealing the result of that powerful attack. The mage and the warrior celebrate their victory, and the big guy says he wishes he could use magic too. The mage then says it was lucky, and now they have to wait until next year to face the bear again. Happy, they load the beast onto a cart and decide to head straight to the guild to celebrate. Our protagonist just stands there, processing everything he just witnessed. It turns out that in this world, magic is something special, and not everyone can use it. Only those chosen by the divine oracle can use magic in a ritual that happens on a person's birthday. It's like a rare gacha item with a 0.1% drop rate, and our hero has already failed 6 times in a row. However, as the adventurers leave, he notices something strange at the battle site. A sphere of blue light begins to glow brightly right in the middle of the scorched earth. He's confused and slowly approaches the mysterious light that appeared out of nowhere. His green eyes shine brightly, reflecting the sphere's light. Without a second thought, our protagonist reaches out to touch the glowing object. The sphere then floats into his hand, and the boy is amazed by what's happening. The light then shoots up into the sky and vanishes before his eyes. He's left completely baffled, as the sphere simply disappeared after he touched it, but he still remembers how beautiful that light was. And then night falls over the town. In the village, we see our protagonist arriving home after a long day. As soon as he walks in, he's greeted by his mother, who welcomes him with a gentle smile. She asks if he's okay, and our hero proudly shows her the 4 coins he earned. His mother seems surprised and a little worried about the situation, but suddenly his older brother, Robin, comes home looking like he's had one too many. His mom immediately asks if he was drinking, and he says he just went to meet a friend named Kevin. He goes on to explain that this Kevin guy is a well-known figure on the artisan street, and Robin justifies it by saying it was all for networking and very important. His mother, a bit awkwardly, just tells him to keep trying his best while Arid watches in silence. He then tells his mom he doesn't need dinner because he already ate out. Right after, he puts a hand to his head, seemingly in pain from the drinks. His mother lets out a tired sigh and calls Arad's name. She scolds him for sighing, saying that Robin is the family heir, so his networking is important. Hugging her, our protagonist agrees and says he understands the situation. For the nobility, continuing the family line is extremely important, even for poor nobles like them. That's why all the support from parents and siblings is focused on the eldest son, who will inherit everything. Our boy understands that this is the natural order of things and has no intention of rebelling against it. But despite that, he doesn't want to just sit around and do nothing either. With a determined look, he decides he's going to leave home using his own strength, because in this world, effort is rewarded. From that day on, Arid began his routine of going back and forth to the forest, gathering herbs. He would then sell everything he collected to save up money little by little. Also, deep in the forest, he would occasionally spy on a few things. At those times, he could see guild hunters using magic to hunt monsters. Our boy then realized that in the places where mages fought, that same glow was always left behind. He nicknamed that glow Manatraces and noticed they shone even without being a light source. Our protagonist stands there thoughtfully, analyzing that mysterious energy up close, but as soon as he tries to touch the sphere of light, it simply vanishes into thin air. Time keeps passing, and we see a beautiful blue sky with white clouds. A few months later, our boy's jaw drops as he stares at something on the horizon. He's impressed by the size of the main house, while Robin scolds him for looking like a country bumpkin. That long-awaited day arrived suddenly for the brothers. Inside the mansion, Arid continues to be amazed by the luxurious ceiling and all the splendor of the place. He soon comes face to face with a table full of fancy foods he's never seen in his life. He takes advantage of the banquet to eat a juicy piece of chicken among all the important people. He finds the meat delicious and thinks about how bland the food at his house is in comparison. His brother then scolds him for eating so crudely and wipes his face with a napkin. Suddenly, their father appears and asks the two of them to follow him. They then bow before someone very important, and their father says it's an honor to meet him. Seated on an imposing throne was the patriarch of the Veal family, who observes them attentively. Our protagonist realizes right away that this man is the most powerful person in his family. His father thanks him for the invitation and takes the opportunity to introduce his eldest son, Robin. He pushes Robin forward, who gets all nervous and stammers a yes to the patriarch. Robin introduces himself nervously, and our hero doesn't like the way his brother spoke at all. The patriarch then tells him to keep working hard so as not to shame the family name, and the boy agrees immediately. His father is relieved and congratulates Robin on the compliment, while Arid complains that he wasn't even introduced. The father and brother celebrate happily, and our protagonist wonders why they're so pleased with such an obvious compliment. Our boy just stands there with a curious look, watching the scene. He stares at the patriarch sitting on his throne, an imposing figure. The old man strokes his beard with an air of superiority and power. Looking at that, our hero understands why Robin got so nervous and stammered in front of that man. But suddenly, an explosion of magical lights in the sky catches everyone's attention. The crowd gapes, looking up, amazed by the spectacle. Our protagonist is also impressed by those incredible magical fireworks. After the show, everyone gathers in the central garden for the next event. Soon after, a group of elite mages from the family appears for an exhibition battle. The people get excited as battles between mages are rare, and someone even recognizes the famous Master Ilum. A staff with a glowing pink crystal then appears, signaling the start of the combat. As expected from the greatest noble family, the magic show was impressive. A pink-haired mage launches a powerful fireball into the air. Meanwhile, another mage with a witch's hat prepares to attack. She summons a giant wave of water that rushes across the field. Soon after, a mage floating in a clay pot manipulates the earth around him. Another mage in a hood creates sharp ice crystals out of thin air. Next, a man with a staff summons a powerful whirlwind of wind. And to finish, a blonde-haired mage shoots lightning from his hands. The crowd is ecstatic with that demonstration of magical power, but Robin notices that Arid isn't even watching the battle, and asks what he's looking at. Our protagonist then points to a glow in the air and says it's a mana trace. Robin is confused and asks what he's talking about, since he doesn't see anything glowing. Arid insists that the glowing thing is right there and points to the mana trace once more. His brother gets even more confused, and Arid tries to show him the sphere of light, but he realizes there's nothing there and that only he can see those mana traces. Robin gets annoyed and tells his brother to stop talking nonsense, saying he's embarrassing him in front of everyone. Our boy then stares at the glow and wonders if his brother really can't see it. To clear his doubt, he decides to approach a maid at the party and asks for a moment of her time. Ard points to the mana trace and asks the young woman if she can see what's there. The maid apologizes and says she doesn't know what he's talking about, and our protagonist thanks her. He then stands there, thoughtful, trying to understand what's happening, because those mysterious mana traces continue to glow right in front of him. And even with so many glows scattered across the field, no one seems to care or even look at them. Our hero then comes to a shocking conclusion and wonders if he's the only one who can see them. But suddenly, a noise catches his attention, and he looks to the side, curious. A little red-haired girl appears, and the people start to gossip, saying she's from the Lewis family. The crowd is surprised and wonders what such an important girl is doing there. An old man then asks the girl named Aria to show everyone what she can do. The elite mages nearby watch the scene with interest and curiosity. The patriarch and another white-haired gentleman also watch the girl with great attention, and our protagonist watches the scene with attention and curiosity. The red-haired girl closes her eyes and concentrates to begin her demonstration. With a shout, she launches a powerful fireball into the air, impressing everyone. After finishing the spell, Aria gives an elegant bow to the crowd. Our hero's jaw drops at the scene, finding the whole thing incredible. The older nobles applaud enthusiastically at the little girl's display of power. Our protagonist then stands thoughtfully, observing the scene from afar. He realizes that people with miraculous luck really do exist in this world, and that he was in the presence of someone who had that absurd luck to be able to use magic. As he thinks about this, Arid sees a mana trace floating right in front of him. He extends his hands, and to his surprise, he manages to hold the sphere of light. The mana glows intensely in his hands, and he feels the power of that energy. Suddenly, our boy reaches his mana absorption limit, and something happens. A cosmic energy envelops his body in a mysterious and powerful transformation. He is then thrown backward, breathless, and wonders what just happened. He puts a hand to his head and wonders if he's hearing things after that strange sensation. Our protagonist then stands there in the middle of the field, trying to understand what happened. With a determined look, he stares at a lone tree on the horizon to test something. He then walks toward the tree, determined to use his new power. Meanwhile, the crowd and the elite mages look at him with astonishment and curiosity. Our boy then concentrates, and flames begin to form in his hands. He extends his hand with a focused look and prepares his first real spell. A gigantic fireball materializes in front of him, ready to be launched. Our hero then fires the magic with all his might toward the tree. The attack hits the target dead on and blows it into 1,000 pieces, leaving everyone shocked. One of the mages then corrects the crowd, saying that wasn't lightning, but magic, and he points to Arid, revealing that it was that boy who fired the fireball. Our protagonist looks at his hands, still not believing what he just did. He breaks into a smile of pure happiness, realizing he can finally use magic. A wave of euphoria washes over him, and the boy shouts with excitement, feeling the power flow. He thinks it's incredible and finally understands what it feels like to use magic. He realizes it's a unique feeling that can only be experienced in this world, because in 6 years of reincarnation, this is the first time he's felt something so thrilling. He then looks at the burning tree and realizes it would be dangerous to use that up close, but he decides to test his power one more time and prepares for a new attack. However, the effort leaves him completely breathless and exhausted. To his surprise, a second explosion happens without him even wanting it to. He then realizes he can't control the power and wonders why he's not like the other mages. The crowd is impressed that he used magic twice in a row at such a young age, but our protagonist starts to feel dizzy and suddenly unwell. He quickly understands that it's all because of his mana. Using magic consumes his energy, and the lack of it causes symptoms similar to anemia. This makes him remember how he used to push the mages in RPGs, and he feels a little guilty. Meanwhile, the crowd comments on how young he is but has a huge amount of mana. They conclude it's because he inherited the Count's blood, as noble bloodlines are different. One of the elite mages is speechless and praises our boy's feat, calling it splendid, but another mage thinks believing in bloodlines is ridiculous, as it has nothing to do with it for him. The pink-haired mage then explains that it was remarkable because a normal child would have passed out for 3 days. Meanwhile, the crowd goes wild and applauds our protagonist nonstop. He gets all embarrassed as he's never received so much praise, not even in his past life. Suddenly, a voice surprises him, asking if he can use magic too. To his surprise, it was the little red-haired girl he saw earlier, approaching him. She introduces herself as Aria Grace Lewis and then asks for our hero's name. He replies that his name is Arid, and the girl is happy to find someone her age who uses magic. Aria then extends her hand and asks if he would like to be her friend, and our boy accepts immediately. The two then shake hands, sealing the new friendship that was just born there. Our protagonist then realizes this is the first time he's held a girl's hand in this world. He turns bright red and feels awkward with the girl's closeness and the scent of her hair, but Arya looks at him with a competitive gaze and says she won't lose to him. A strange energy flows between them, while our hero is left completely clueless. Suddenly, the patriarch approaches and asks if he is the son of Veal, startling our boy. Our hero confirms nervously, realizing he's in the presence of the powerful Count Barton. The Count then questions why he didn't say he could use magic when they met earlier. Arid explains that he didn't know how to use magic then, and that only he can see the mana fragments. The noble stares at the boy with a serious look and remains silent for a moment. Our protagonist feels awkward and regrets not having learned noble etiquette, but to his surprise, the Count finds the boy's attitude interesting and gives a smile. He praises Arid for not looking away, and our hero thanks him awkwardly. The Count then calls for the boy's father, who had been kneeling on the ground the whole time. He can't see Arid's father, and our hero has to point out that he's right behind the noble. The Count praises the father for having such a polite son, who knew to wait to be introduced. Our protagonist then thinks that's easy, since he has the mentality of a 30-year-old man. The noble says goodbye, mentioning he'll be in touch with them later, and the father nervously agrees. Before leaving, Arya turns to Arid and says she hopes to see him again. Our hero just watches the group walk away as the girl waves goodbye to him. The nobles at the party whisper among themselves, confirming that the boy really did catch the Count's attention. His father is beaming with pride and congratulates Arid on his wonderful achievement. Our hero is a bit taken aback by his father's enthusiasm. He remembers that he is now a noble, something he had forgotten because of their poverty. But in the middle of the crowd, his brother Robin watches him with a look of pure envy. He clenches his teeth in anger and jealousy, seeing his younger brother steal all the attention. A few days later, our protagonist is back in the forest to continue his work. He finds a mushroom that looks delicious and picks it to take home. As he walks with his basket of twigs and the mushroom in hand, our hero stays alert. He spots a rabbit watching him from a distance, but it doesn't run away as expected. Our boy thinks the rabbit let its guard down because he's just a child. That animal is probably not used to being hunted by humans in the mountains. He then decides to test his aim and creates a small, weak fireball in his hand. Very carefully, he throws the magic with the intention of barely missing the target. The attack hits the ground near the rabbit and scares it, making it jump away. The rabbit then falls to the ground, and our protagonist approaches to pick it up. He's happy to have gotten his first hunt using magic. With a determined look, he realizes that he can now go beyond gathering herbs and can also hunt, but suddenly he notices a strange glow coming from the rabbit and gets confused. As he gets closer, he realizes it's a mana trace and is shocked when he touches it. The glow doesn't disappear, and he wonders if it's because it's his own magic or because he's already learned fireball. With the rabbit on his back, he decides he needs to find other types of mana traces. Our hero then begins his search through the forest under the sunlight. He runs between the trees with a new goal in mind, full of determination. It doesn't take long for him to find a mana fragment different from the ones he's seen before. Analyzing the spot, he notices the ground is sunken but with no burn marks. He deduces it must be wind magic and approaches carefully, hoping it works. Our boy then extends his hand, and to his surprise he manages to absorb the new mana. He lets out a sigh of relief, realizing the process worked once again. He's happy because now he knows he can keep learning new spells. Our protagonist then returns to the village with a new plan in mind. Carrying a bundle of firewood on his back, he walks along the dirt road. He greets a vendor from the town who recognizes him and asks if he's running an errand. Ard then shows the rabbit he caught and asks if the man wants to buy it. The vendor is surprised and asks if the boy caught the animal by himself. Examining the rabbit, he notes that it's fresh and has no marks, and asks how he did it. Our hero then smiles and reveals he used a little magic to capture it. The vendor and the people around are shocked to learn that a little boy, like him, knows how to use magic. Everyone starts praising him and Arid gets embarrassed, saying he only knows simple things. The vendor then says he's very lucky, as he waited 40 years and got nothing. With a confident smile, our protagonist says he can continue hunting regularly. The man gets excited, praising our hero's mage spirit. He then pays for the rabbit and promises a better price if Arid keeps bringing more. Our boy thanks him and says goodbye to the vendor, who wishes him a safe trip home. Arad is surprised, because with just one rabbit, he made a whole day's worth of herb money. With a determined smile, he realizes that thanks to magic, his income has increased a lot and his goal is closer. He concludes that magic is the answer to all his problems and the path to success. Holding the bag of coins, he reinforces his new strategy to get stronger, because the more magic he can use, the easier his life will become in this world. So, with a thoughtful look, he decides his first step is to find more mana fragments. He believes that in a city as big as this one, there must be many fragments to find. Our hero then begins his search through the busy streets of the village. He looks in every corner and alley but finds no sign of mana fragments. Frustrated, he despairs, having walked all over the city without finding a single fragment. Sitting on a wall, he wonders why he can't find any fragments there, but suddenly, a voice interrupts him, and he looks down to see who called him. A man is bothering a flower seller, and she tells him to go away. He insists and tries to pull her by the arm to go out with him. The girl gets scared, and the man holds her tightly, not caring about her protests. Our protagonist then realizes with anger that even in this world, there are despicable people. He decides to intervene but thinks it would be dangerous to attack the man directly. He then jumps off the wall and casts a gust of wind to scare the aggressor. The attack sends the man flying and throws him into the middle of the street. To everyone's surprise, but suddenly, a young man in armor appears and tells the man to stop being pathetic. The aggressor gets up angrily and asks who the kid who challenged him is. He then tries to attack the young man, but with another gust of wind, he's thrown far away. The man flies through the air and crashes hard into a wooden stall. He's left there, knocked out amidst the debris, with no chance to fight back. The young knight then approaches the vendor, asks if she's okay, and the girl thanks him. He then compliments her, saying it would be terrible if something happened to such a beautiful woman. Our protagonist notices that only one mana fragment appeared on the scene. He crouches down and thinks that even though he used the spell twice, only one fragment appeared. This leaves him thoughtful, and he wonders if the fragments appear randomly. After his analysis, our hero concludes that there's nothing more for him to do in this city, because if the city is peaceful, there's no need to use magic, and thus no fragments appear. Sitting on the stairs, our hero wonders where magic is used frequently, and concludes he needs a place where its use is mandatory, and as he thinks about it, he has a brilliant idea. He remembers his mother warning him never to go into the deep forest because it's very dangerous, and at the time, he asked what was in there. She replied that the place is full of scary monsters, but our hero wasn't intimidated. His mother forbade him from going near the place, but the idea of the deep forest kept nagging at him. He then realizes there's a better chance of finding mana fragments there than in the city, and even though he's never been near the forest before, now he can use magic and decides to try his luck. Our protagonist then walks along the dirt road with his new destination in mind, but as he passes a cemetery, he comes across a funeral where a woman is crying over the loss of her husband. An old lady then laments not being able to use healing magic, and says that this miraculous power never shows up when you need it most. Another person says it would be nice if resurrection magic existed. Our protagonist then listens to the conversation attentively, hidden behind a pillar. He understands what those people were saying about magic. He comes to the conclusion that resurrection magic really doesn't exist. He then remembers when he was a baby, and even without being able to move, he already had many thoughts about his new life. As a child, he had a lot of time to think about his new life. One of his recurring thoughts was about the existence of life magic. More specifically, whether resurrection magic existed in this world. He knew that in a world of swords and sorcery, this was a common element in anime and games. But now, as a resident of this world, he received an important piece of information and had already expected it. Our hero is then happy to have discovered the truth at a good time. He recites a spell to cherish life, reminding himself to be careful. Our protagonist then enters the deep forest with the sun shining through the trees. Upon entering, he feels that the air in the place is completely different from what he was used to, and even without his mother's warnings, he certainly wouldn't have entered here without magic. Suddenly, he hears footsteps approaching and goes on high alert. The footsteps get closer and closer, and our hero prepares for what's coming. He remembers the mourner's words about resurrection magic. Our boy then decides to investigate the noise to see what's happening. Peeking through the bushes, he is shocked by what he sees in front of him. A horde of wolves with glowing red eyes runs through the forest at high speed. Our protagonist is terrified by the scene and covers his mouth to not make a sound. He wonders what an absurd number of wolves that is as one of them runs past him. The wolf disappears down the trail, leaving a trail of dry leaves behind. Our hero falls to the ground, frightened by the experience, and tries to calm down. That scene reminds him of his former mother crying desperately. He remembers how she looked at him with sadness in her eyes. Our protagonist then continues his journey through the forest with a determined look. He thinks about how he was reincarnated without ever showing gratitude to his parents. That's why he knows he needs to be careful, as he now has a new chance at life. Suddenly, he trips and falls to the ground, startled by something he saw. He crawls away from the danger with his heart pounding. He then notices there are two monsters in the clearing, and is curious about the scene. Hidden behind a tree, he wonders if the two monsters are fighting each other. The sound of a fight echoes through the forest, confirming his suspicions. Our hero then approaches carefully to watch the fight up close. Hidden behind a tree, he crouches down so the monsters won't see him. He then widens his eyes, shocked by the scene unfolding in front of him. A giant monster with spikes on its back attacks another monster with sharp claws. The clawed beast is hit head on, and pieces of its shell fly through the air. It tries to fight back with its claws, but the other monster is faster. With its mouth open, the spiky monster prepares for a devastating attack. Our protagonist watches it all as if it were a hyper-realistic monster movie. The clawed monster is sent flying by the force of its opponent's attack. The spiky monster then starts to charge electrical energy in its body. It fires a powerful lightning bolt that hits the ground with incredible force. Our hero's jaw drops when he realizes that's magic and not a physical attack. The clawed monster falls to the ground injured and tries to get up with difficulty, but the other monster stares it down with its glowing eyes and prepares for the final blow. With a powerful roar, it charges forward and sends its opponent flying, ending the battle. The spiky monster then moves away, dragging its prey and leaving the clearing empty. Our protagonist lets out a sigh of relief when he sees the danger has passed. He looks at the battle site and notices something shining on the ground. Carefully, he sneaks through the forest to investigate what caught his attention. Upon reaching the spot, he extends his hand and manages to absorb a new mana fragment. Our hero then celebrates his success with a very animated victory pose. He concludes that despite the danger, it was worth it, as he got a good result, because on top of everything, he discovered that there was magic in this forest, which was a great haul. But looking at the sky, he realizes it's already dark, and he needs to go back. With a serious look, he decides he shouldn't push himself too hard for now. He begins his journey back home through the dark forest, but suddenly, he stops and looks to the side with a surprised expression. He needs to get home soon, but something shining in the middle of the darkness catches his attention. He then approaches to see what it is and comes across a mysterious light. To his surprise, he finds another mana fragment glowing in front of him. Our protagonist is shocked and wonders if he saw that right. He runs through the forest to confirm if what he saw was real. When he gets to the spot, he sees the mana fragment glowing and is sure he wasn't mistaken. But suddenly, the fragment starts to disappear, and he runs to grab it. Our hero then reaches out his hand and manages to touch the sphere of light before it vanishes. He is thrown back by the fragment's energy but manages to absorb it. To his surprise, he obtains a fragment of ancient magic resurrection of the dead. Our protagonist then hides behind a tree to process what happened. He is shocked to discover that resurrection magic really exists. With wide eyes, he wonders if this is real and if he can actually use this magic. Meanwhile, an adventurer finds a high-quality gemstone. His companions celebrate and decide to go to the guild to exchange it for money. Our hero then approaches and greets them with a wave. One of the adventurers introduces him to his friends and says the red-haired girl is a mage. Our protagonist then asks to speak with the mage as he has something important to ask. He asks the girl if she happens to know anything about ancient magic. The mage is confused and repeats the question, not understanding what our hero was talking about. She asks her friends, but nobody knows anything, and then asks Arid why he wants to know. Our protagonist lies, saying he heard someone in town bragging about using this magic and got curious. The adventurers burst out laughing and say it's just a story, as they've never heard of ancient magic. Our boy apologizes for the strange question, and the mage says it's okay. She then warns him that the place is dangerous, and tells him to go back home as soon as possible. The mage even offers to walk him back, but Arid refuses, saying he can go by himself. As he walks away, he waves and thinks that these people are just like everyone else, because none of the adventurers he met knew about the existence of ancient magic. Frustrated, he yells that he wishes he could just Google it, as it would solve the mystery instantly. Our hero then walks through a field and laments how much he misses the internet. He continues his journey back to the village with his head full of doubts. Back in the city, he thinks that in this world, information and knowledge are expensive and hard to get treasures. With a stick, he writes the name of the magic he obtained in the true resurrection of the dead. With his foot, he erases what he wrote and concludes that this magic really doesn't exist. But suddenly, his brother Robin appears looking drunk and asks what he's doing. Our protagonist lets out a tired sigh, realizing his brother has been drinking again. Robin is confused and doesn't understand his younger brother's reaction at all. He asks if Arid is looking for ancient magic, calling him weird. Robin tells him to stop with these useless fantasies because this so-called ancient magic doesn't exist. He suggests that Arid should improve himself like he does, and our hero sarcastically agrees. His brother then starts bragging, saying he's friends with the famous Kevin, and Arid doesn't even care. However, a female voice greets Arad and interrupts their conversation. To everyone's surprise, it was Aria, and our protagonist asks what she's doing there. The red-haired girl smiles and says she has something she really wants to show him. Arid feels a sense of rivalry in the air and decides he's not going to lose to her. Robin then puts a hand on his brother's shoulder with a mischievous smile. He asks excitedly if that girl is, by any chance, Arad's girlfriend. Robin calls him a kid, and our hero turns bright red, telling him not to jump to conclusions. Our protagonist then asks if Robin remembers Count Lewis, to see if he gets it. Robin replies that of course he remembers, as he met him at the party recently. The two then fall silent, and our hero thinks his brother's personality is unbelievable. He thinks that if his brother were an office worker, he would have been fired a long time ago. But even so, our boy starts to feel a little bad for Robin, because Aria doesn't even seem to care about the situation and keeps a disinterested expression. Our hero then concludes that at least she wasn't offended, but he still feels bad for his brother. Suddenly, a fancy carriage appears on the street, startling everyone there. It was pulled by two white horses, and a man in a suit ran alongside it. The man then shouts for the young lady and scolds her for leaving the house alone. Aria says it's no problem because she's a mage, but the man insists that's not the point. He explains that if something happened to her, he wouldn't be able to face his master. The girl then complains that this Craig is so annoying and the man keeps insisting. Our protagonist notices the crest on the carriage door and wonders if it's Count Lewis's. Robin finally understands who the girl is, and Arid thinks it's too late now. Robin then tries to introduce himself to Arya with a forced smile, and our hero thinks, "Don't smile like that." She recognizes him as Arad's brother and greets him politely, saying it's a pleasure to meet him. The man then asks if she's finished, and our protagonist thinks the conversation is probably over. Our boy reminds her that she had something to show him, and the girl perks up immediately. She says with a smile that she came all this way to show him something very special. A powerful energy then starts to form in her hands as she concentrates on the spell. With a focused look, the red-haired girl continues to gather mana in her hands. She fires the fireball that burns the man's hat, while our hero watches everything attentively. Arya then asks what he thought, and our protagonist is shocked, not understanding what happened. The girl says with a smile that it seems he didn't notice, and our hero gets even more confused. She then explains that magic isn't just about knowing how to use it, and our hero notices the girl's attitude suddenly changed. The important thing is to know how to control the mana, not just release it at full force, and our hero finally understands. He thinks he needs more concentration but doesn't think there's a big difference in the final result. Our protagonist then focuses his gaze on the girl while processing the information he received. Arya smiles proudly at her achievement and asks if it wasn't just perfect. Our hero thanks the girl and says she must have practiced a lot to reach that level. He's impressed that she put in so much effort, even with such a small body. Arya then compliments the girl with a smile and says she's truly amazing. Arya gets flustered by our protagonist's sincere compliment and stares at him surprised. She denies the compliment, but our boy can tell she was really happy about it. Suddenly, our protagonist looks to the side and wonders where his brother Robin went. Arya then offers to teach him how to control mana since they're both fire mages. Our hero remembers playing with his friend's kids and accepts the girl's invitation, but suddenly, someone calls his name, and our boy looks at her with a surprised expression. It was his brother Robin, who had returned and was with another young man. Robin then proudly introduces the famous Kevin from the Artisan Street. Our hero sighs at Kevin's annoyed face while Arya and the butler are confused. He notices Robin's shoulders are tense and realizes what he's trying to do. He understands that Robin is trying to show off to Arya by flaunting his friendship. The atmosphere becomes super awkward, and Arid wonders how he's going to get out of this embarrassing situation. Suddenly, another luxury carriage arrives, catching everyone's attention. The group just stands there, watching the scene without understanding what's happening. A servant with a mask gets out and places a stool in front of the door. Next, a gray-haired man begins to slowly step out of the carriage. To everyone's surprise, it was the family's patriarch who suddenly appeared. Robin and his friend Kevin are jaw-dropped, shocked by the noble's appearance. The old man then looks at the group and comments on all the commotion. He stares at Robin and asks if he's Arid's brother, making the young man very nervous. Robin bows immediately and introduces himself awkwardly to the powerful count. The noble then tells him to keep up the hard work, and the boy thanks him for his words. Robin then calls Kevin to leave, and the two walk away looking less than thrilled. Before leaving, Robin shoots a look of pure hatred at Arid, who awkwardly looks away. Our hero then realizes that being called Arid's brother twice has hurt Robin's pride. The count then turns to the group, and they start walking to another location. He asks Arya what a girl like her is doing in a place like this. Arya explains she wanted to talk to Arid since they're both fire mages, and the count praises her dedication, but our hero thinks it was more of a one-sided show-off than a conversation. Arya then asks the count what he's doing there, and the old man becomes thoughtful for a moment. With a serious look, the count begins to explain the reason for his visit. His intense gaze then fixes on something on the ground that caught his attention. The noble stops walking and remains silent for a moment. Soon after, he turns with a mysterious smile on his face and looks at the two of them. The old man then points to the ground and asks who wrote that, leaving them both confused. Our protagonist raises his hand and confesses that he was the one who wrote on the ground. The count is shocked and asks where Arid heard that, thinking he's been wrong all this time. Arid then remembers that information is wealth and wonders who has the most wealth in the world. Obviously, the nobles. With a confident smile, he's sure that this man knows the answer he's been searching for because he has the information about ancient magic that no one else seems to know. The noble then stares at him with a serious look and repeats the question of where he heard that. Arya is confused by the old man's intensity, and our hero just watches the scene in silence. The count then says he's going to ask one more time, just to be sure of the answer. He repeats the question of where he heard about this so-called ancient magic. Our protagonist is at a loss for words, as he needs to answer to get the information. He knows that a poorly told lie won't work on such an important person. Besides, the pressure the old man is putting on him is so great that he can't even lie. For now, he decides he'll hide the truth about the mana traces only he can see. So, he says he heard a voice when he learned to use magic and feels like a criminal. The count calls it the voice of the gods, and Arya seems to recognize the concept. Our boy then continues his story to see if he can convince the old man. The noble is silent for a long moment while analyzing the boy's answer. After thinking for a bit, he seems to accept the explanation and says he understands the situation explanation, but suddenly, the count turns to leave, and our hero is left completely confused. He asks if the old man is already leaving, since they haven't even talked about ancient magic. The noble explains that this isn't a topic to be discussed there, and that he'll send someone soon. Our protagonist then agrees with the old man's decision, and waits for contact. The count gives the boy one last look before finally leaving. He turns and starts walking toward his carriage, but before he goes he asks Aria's butler if he's the only servant she has. Aria then shouts for the count and defends her servant, saying he did nothing wrong. She explains that she was being stubborn and left on her own, and the old man says he'll explain something to her. He reminds her that they are from a prestigious noble family, and she nods in agreement, because nobles have a position to maintain, and it's dangerous to walk around without an escort. Besides, Count Luce would be very worried about her, and the girl apologizes. Meanwhile, our protagonist watches from a distance and recognizes someone from the party. He remembers that one of the men there was the count's bodyguard. Soon after, the carriage horse neighs, ready to depart. The old man's silhouette then enters the carriage, preparing to leave. The carriage departs and leaves the courtyard behind, taking the count with it. The place then falls silent after the carriage disappears over the horizon. The butler consoles Aria, who seems a bit upset about the situation. Our hero just watches the scene in silence, thoughtful about what happened. The butler tries to cheer up Aria, who is quite upset by the scolding she received. He remembers that our hero wanted to learn how to control magic and asks if she's going to teach him. The red-haired girl perks up immediately and confirms she'll teach him everything. She then falls silent for a moment as she prepares to start the lesson. She then approaches Arid, and he thinks the idea worked to cheer her up. With a serious look, Aria asks if he really wants to learn how to control mana. Our protagonist is happy to see how excited she got with the idea of teaching him. This reminds him of when a little girl tried to teach him how to tie a ribbon. He remembers how the little girl agreed to teach her dad too. With a proud smile, she shows that she managed to tie the ribbon perfectly. Our hero then praises her work, and the little girl is happy with the compliment. She even offers to teach him more things, and he tells her to call him Big Bro. Back in the present, he wonders if his friend felt the same way, and Aria begins the lesson. She asks him to imagine a glass cup to start the explanation. When you tilt the cup, the water spills, and the amount depends on the angle. She then tells him to think of the water as his mana and control the amount released. The butler understands the lesson as he watches the two from a distance. Our hero thinks this is similar to training in manga, and wonders if the stories were real. The red-haired girl then prepares to demonstrate what she just explained. With a controlled attack, she blows up a small mound of dirt in front of her. The girl is a little out of breath but seems to be fine after the attack. Our hero asks if she's okay, and the girl replies that it was nothing. She asks Era to try too, while the butler watches everything with a smile. He thinks he could do it easily but decides to pretend it's difficult so as not to disappoint the girl. Our protagonist then starts to concentrate to gather the mana in his hands. He tries to control the mana to appear weaker and clumsier than Aria. With a lot of effort, he manages to create a very small and unstable fireball, but the magic explodes in his face, and the two are startled by the noise. Our hero then feels dizzy and confused, not understanding what happened. He wonders if the magic exploded because he made it too small. Aria then pats his head and tells him not to be upset, as no one gets it right on the first try. Our hero understands that using magic that way tires him out faster than usual. Controlling magic is like putting the brakes on the mana circuit, which uses up a lot more energy. He concludes that the smaller the fireball, the more mana and stamina it needs to remain stable. Our boy then decides to think about it later, and thinks that was a good lesson, but suddenly the butler shouts for the young lady to run, and the two are left confused. To everyone's shock, Craig's body falls lifelessly to the ground after a surprise attack. Our protagonist shouts the butler's name, and the two run to see what happened. Aria then turns around angrily and asks what those guys are doing there. Two mysterious men appear, and one of them says he's going to tie up the boy so he doesn't escape. The red-haired girl then steps in front of Arid and launches a fireball to protect him, but to everyone's surprise, her spell fails and nothing happens. She then panics and wonders why the magic won't come out. Realizing she's out of mana, she only accounted for the two attacks she used to show off, and didn't calculate the energy cost. Suddenly, the men start chanting, and our hero realizes they are mages too. One of the mages then creates ice crystals and prepares to attack the two of them. Our hero shouts Aria's name and pushes her away from the attack. The other mage orders his partner not to let the two of them escape. Our protagonist then turns to face the enemies with a determined look. A shower of ice crystals begins to rain down on the two, who have nowhere to run. Our hero grabs Aria and runs, trying to escape the deadly attack. The ice crystals crash against the ground, freezing everything around them. The area is flat with nowhere to hide, and our protagonist points in one direction. He then pulls Aria, and the two run towards the only nearby forest. After that, they hide behind a bush, and the attack almost hits them. Our hero realizes they'll be caught if they stay there and covers Aria's mouth. The mage continues to attack them relentlessly. One of them then tells his partner that now is the time to get them once and for all. The three of them begin to walk slowly toward the forest to look for the two. Hidden, our protagonist is terrified and wonders what he should do to escape. He remembers that in his his world. He could never have imagined a situation like this. Several mana traces then begin to glow on the battlefield right in front of him. Our boy gets up and runs towards the traces to absorb them. To everyone's surprise, he manages to absorb one of the ice mana traces. He then runs towards another trace to continue accumulating power. Arya's jaw drops, not understanding what on earth he's doing in the middle of a fight. Our hero manages to absorb a healing mana trace and feels stronger. He reaches the absorption limit and is enveloped by a powerful energy. A cosmic force then transforms him and he feels stronger than ever. With a smile, he realizes this is his only chance to turn the tables. Our hero then launches a powerful wave of ice toward the three mages. The wave of ice freezes everything in its path and creates a giant pillar in the middle of the field. The mages are shocked and wonder what that is since it wasn't their doing. One of them recognizes the magic as Ice Blade and is completely confused. They wonder if the boy wasn't a fire mage, leaving them baffled. Our protagonist then lets out a sigh of relief when he sees the attack work. He tells Arya they need to get out of there as fast as possible. Our hero takes her by the hand, and the two run into the forest. He says he knows the forest well and can easily lose the enemies, but Arya questions why they are running, and he doesn't know what to say. She then says they should face the bad guys instead of running. Our protagonist explains that he can't let her get hurt, and the girl gets embarrassed. Our hero then yells at Arya to stop being stubborn and keep running. One of the mages shouts that he'll definitely catch the two brats. They get closer and closer, and the two become desperate to escape. Our protagonist thinks about how hard it is to run with a child's body in the middle of the forest. Arya then stops running and says she can't keep fleeing anymore. He hears what she says and gets an idea to shake off their pursuers. Our hero then grabs her and pulls her down a different path in the forest. The two run down a narrow and difficult path among the trees. One of the men complains that this is a pain and tells his partner not to worry. He believes the two will get tired soon, and then it will be easy to catch them. Arya then calls for Arid, and he tells her not to worry, that everything will be okay. Our hero smiles at her, and the two continue running through the forest. They run through an open field, and our protagonist spots a place to hide. He points to the spot, and the two run to try and hide from the mages. Our hero finds a hole in the ground and tells Arya they can hide there. The two then hide and Arya gets scared of the dark, cramped space. She calls for Arad and asks him not to hide there because she's scared. Our protagonist then tells her to be quiet because the enemies are getting closer. The three mages get near the hiding spot and start looking for the two. One of them shouts and asks where they are hiding, and Arya gets even more scared. The man then tells his partners they must be nearby and tells them to look properly. The red-haired girl starts to tremble with fear, and our hero comforts her. He holds her hand to try and calm her down, and the girl is surprised by the gesture. Our protagonist then smiles at her, and the girl gets flustered. Suddenly, a monster's roar echoes through the forest, and one of the mages gets scared. The group's leader is confused about what's happening and looks to the side. A giant monster then appears, and one of the men realizes they've entered a nest. He yells for his partners to retreat as they have no chance against that beast. One of them then says to ignore the brats and focus on getting out of there, but the other says he won't let them escape and points to the two of them. One of the mages glares at our hero and tells him to just wait because he'll get his revenge. They then flee as fast as they can while the monster continues to attack them. The creature hits one of the men with a powerful attack and sends him flying. Our protagonist then takes Arya by the hand, and the two run far away from there. The red-haired girl looks at him, confused, but continues running by his side. The two run through the forest while being watched by two mysterious people. One of them praises the boy's cleverness, as he was very smart when it came to escaping. The other agrees and says he lured the enemies into a monster nest on purpose, because not even a rookie adventurer could have pulled that off in such a short time. One of them then changes the subject and starts talking about the mission they received. He asks what they should do with the mages who attacked the girl. The other says to leave them, as with those skills, they'll get eaten anyway. The man then hangs from a branch and asks if it's really okay to leave it like that. His partner asks if he's being serious, and the other questions what he means. He then asks what they will report to the count about the three attackers. He continues, saying that even though it was the young lady's fault, an attack on a noble isn't a normal thing. The count will surely want to know the identities of those who attacked her. His partner agrees and runs to capture the mages before they get taken out. The other one then stops and asks his partner how old the boy they saw is. He complains that their judgment is worse than that of a 6-year-old child. The two of them stretch and continue their mission of protecting the girl from a distance. The man then looks at the sky and says that boy is really very interesting. Meanwhile, our protagonist and Arya continue running through the forest. They pass through a field full of ice crystals left over from the battle. Our hero takes the chance to run towards the crystals and absorb them. The forest then falls silent after the two disappear into the vegetation. Our protagonist and Arya continue their escape and finally manage to lose their enemies. They then find Craig's body and Arya screams his name in desperation. The scene pans out to show the butler's body lying in the middle of the field. field. Near his hand was a vial with some kind of mysterious liquid. Ari then runs to the butler and shouts for him to wake up. Desperate. To everyone's surprise, the man groans in pain but seems to be alive. He gets up and tells the young lady to run because the dangerous men are nearby. The red-haired girl then hugs him with tears in her eyes and says that everything is okay now. Craig is confused and asks what she means by that, and the girl comforts him. Our protagonist then tells him not to relax and to get Ari away from there. He explains that the enemies might come back and that they need to leave as soon as possible. The three of them then stand there in the middle of the field, thinking about what to do next. The butler agrees with Arid and tells the young lady that they need to go. The scene then pans out to show the red roofs of the village under the blue sky. Our hero says goodbye to Ari and the butler, who get into the carriage. The carriage departs and our protagonist stands there, watching the scene. Suddenly, Ari jumps out of the moving carriage and runs back to Arad. The two then run toward each other and meet in the middle of the street. Our hero asks what she's doing, and the girl, out of breath, tries to explain. He then asks what she wants, and the girl gets embarrassed. With a red face, she thanks him for saving her from the mages. Our hero is surprised and speechless at the girl's gratitude. He thinks about how polite she is, and how different from his older brother. Suddenly, Arya starts to tremble, and our hero asks what's wrong. The butler and the horse are also confused by the girl's reaction. She then stammers and tries to say something to Arad, who looks at her, confused. With tears in her eyes, the red-haired girl says that he's too much. Our protagonist then looks at his dirty clothes and thinks she called him dirty. Arya yells that's not it, and our hero gets even more confused. She tries to explain, and our boy gets an idea of what she means. He then asks with a smile if he was cooler than she expected. The girl turns bright red and gets angry at our protagonist's question. She immediately denies it, saying it's nothing like that, and our hero feigns surprise. Arya continues to deny it, and our protagonist wonders what she wanted to say. Angrily, Arya tells him not to get too full of himself, or he'll get burned one day. She runs back to the carriage, all grumpy about the situation. The butler then helps her up, and they finally depart, leaving our hero behind. Our protagonist stands there with a smile on his face, watching the scene. He thinks that even though she's a noble, she's a very sweet and kind girl. Our hero laughs and thinks that being with Arya makes him feel like a father. He continues his walk back home, alone on the dirt road. Our boy then looks at the horizon and is silent for a moment. Sitting on a rock, he realizes that the enemy mages didn't come back to attack him. He wonders if the monsters got them and feels a little worried, because if a beast like that attacked them, they wouldn't have had a chance to continue the chase. Our protagonist then stretches and prepares to continue on his way. He looks at his hands, thoughtful about what happened in the battle. After looking around, he realizes there's no one nearby and decides to test something. Our hero finds it embarrassing how mages shout their spells in front of everyone. He lets out a sigh, preparing to test his new power. He casts a powerful wave of ice without needing to shout the spell's name. To his surprise, the attack is much stronger and more precise than he imagined. The wave of ice crashes against the ground and creates a pillar of 20 to 30 centimeters. He then realizes that this is the result of a correctly cast spell, and that the size is the same as the attack the enemy used against them. Our hero concludes that he can learn any magic instantly if he has mana traces. A shower of fireballs then rains from the sky, destroying everything in its path. A large explosion occurs, kicking up a cloud of dust and smoke. Several mages appear on a cliff and prepare to attack a target. Platforms of light appear in the air, and our hero prepares for battle. He jumps from one platform to another, approaching the enemies with speed. Our protagonist then lands on a stone pillar, surrounded by spheres of light. He stares down the enemies from a distance with a determined look, ready for combat, but suddenly he realizes something is wrong and goes on high alert. He then concludes that even though this looks like a game, if he acts like a careless gamer, he'll be toast a million times over. Our protagonist sits on a rock and decides he needs to value his life, because even if resurrection magic exists, he probably can't use it on himself. He remembers how life was in an RPG, where the healer always goes down first. That's the big difference between healing and resurrection magic, but he thinks it's an incredible power. He then looks at the ice pillar and decides he won't use this power for now. Our hero stretches and decides to go back to basics to hone his skills. First, he needs to test the spells he can already use, and is excited to start. He realizes he can change the shape of the ice, trying to create something new. With great focus, he visualizes what he wants to create and concentrates on shaping the ice. Breathless, he finally manages to create an ice sword and is impressed with the result. He then realizes that with practice, he can create anything he can imagine, and gets excited. But suddenly, he gets confused and wonders what he just felt in the air. Our hero remembers a strange sensation that passed through his mind. He picks up the ice sword, preparing to test his new power in the field. He concentrates and tries to recreate the sensation he had before creating the sword. With a lot of effort, he manages to gather the ice mana and shape it into a specific form. Our protagonist finally understands what he needs to do to succeed. He manages to create the ice sword, realizing the problem was the time it took. He needs time to adjust the mana, just like Arya did with the fireball. Our hero focuses on the timing and tries to speed up the process of creating the the sword. He believes that if his theory is correct, he can create the weapon instantly. With a determined look, he casts the spell, and the ice sword materializes. His eyes then shine with the intensity of the magic he just conjured. He shouts the name of the spell, and the ice sword appears in his hands. Our protagonist then stands there in silence, processing what he just did, but suddenly a voice calls him, and he turns to see who is there. It was the two mysterious men who were watching him from a distance, and they call him over. One of them talks about the giant lizard in the forest, and our hero is confused. Suddenly, the man launches an ice attack and shatters our protagonist's sword. Our protagonist and the blue-haired man are shocked, and the man points at the boy, because the mysterious man created an ice star much more powerful than Arad's sword. Our hero then remembers that his spell worked and is happy, surrounded by ice. The two men look at the ice star on the ground, and one of them asks if the boy just did that. Arad gets embarrassed and tries to say something but can't quite explain himself. The two men then look at each other, shocked, and ask how he knows how to use delayed casting at his age. The ice star glows on the ground, showing the complexity of our hero's magic. One of the men asks who taught him that, and Arad doesn't know what to say. Our protagonist panics and thinks he needs to come up with an excuse quickly. The man concludes that a child couldn't have learned that from anyone. He praises our hero for mastering the technique on his own, but Arad tries to deny everything. The man continues, saying it's incredible that he's using such a difficult spell without having learned it from anyone. The blue-haired man asks if he's right, and the other agrees that it's amazing. Our protagonist gets embarrassed, and the man asks if he learned it or not. The man then points at him and says he caught him lying again, and Arad is shocked. The man is taken aback when he remembers that our hero's family is poor. He gets angry, and the blue-haired man asks what he's complaining about. The blue-haired guy threatens to smack him again to make him understand the situation. Our protagonist then gets scared and realizes he said too much without meaning to. The man apologizes to Arad and says he didn't mean to make fun of him. Then the blue-haired one also apologizes, saying his partner is a bit clueless, but our hero says it's okay, because being poor is the truth, and he doesn't mind. To make up for it, the man says he's going to teach our boy something really good. He steps back and creates a glowing green energy disc to start the lesson. The man presents the disc to Arad and asks him to touch the mysterious object. Our protagonist points to the disc and asks if he should touch it right there. He wonders what this is all about but extends his hand to touch the disc. Upon touching the object, a wave of energy envelops him, and our boy is shocked. The man laughs and asks if he liked it, and our protagonist is confused. The blue-haired one scolds him and tells him to teach the boy properly instead of showing off. He says he needs to explain it properly for our boy to understand. The man agrees and says he'll explain it step by step for our hero. He asks if the magic Arad used activated on its own after a while, and our boy confirms. But this time the spell didn't activate and just stayed there, and our hero agrees again. The man explains that the condition to activate the magic isn't time, but a trigger. Depending on the condition, the magic can be activated like a switch, not a timer. The man then prepares to reveal the big trick behind that technique. Our protagonist is super excited by the explanation and finds it all very interesting. Meanwhile, the ice pillars they created remain scattered across the field. Soon after, the two begin to practice the new technique in the middle of that vast field. Our hero thinks the man seemed lazy, but he explains things very well. He concludes that the Count's escort is truly on another level of skill. The blue-haired one notices the boy's incredible focus, and Arad apologizes for taking so long, but the man says that wasn't a complaint, but a compliment. He asks if the boy is tired from using so much mana, and our hero asks what he wants. He then says the boy was attacked by 3 mysterious people, and Arad awkwardly agrees. The man asks if he knows anything about the 3 who attacked them. Our hero immediately denies it and says he knows nothing about them, and the man says he understands. The two are silent for a moment as the sun sets on the horizon. Arad then asks why he wants to know, and the man says it's just a precaution. He's guarding the girl on the Count's orders, and our hero finally understands. He insists and asks if the boy is sure he doesn't know anything. Our protagonist shakes his head, confirming he knows nothing. The man then says it's okay and that it's time for him to leave. He says goodbye to Arad, ruffling his hair before leaving. The blue-haired one then scolds him, saying that Arad is also a noble, but the man says it's no problem, because now Arad is their friend. The two leave and wave to our protagonist, who watches them from a distance. Our hero thinks he needs to thank them properly the next time they meet, but suddenly he's startled by the ice sword that materializes in front of him. He falls to the ground and complains of pain from the intense training. Our hero then concludes that this was the hardest magic he's learned so far. On top of everything, he can't even see the result, so the efficiency is terrible. He wonders if there's a better way to train this new skill. Since the sun hasn't set yet, he decides to go to the forest, as it should be safe. Our protagonist gets excited and says there's no better practice than real experience. A beautiful landscape with the sun setting on the horizon then appears. The next morning, our hero is already in the forest, ready to put his plan into action. Suddenly, he sees a rabbit with an ice dagger stuck in its back and is shocked. Our protagonist then celebrates the success of his new trap and lifts the rabbit. He concludes that with traps, he can train and hunt at the same time. This is the best way to use delayed casting to create traps. He wonders if the other traps he set also worked, but upon reaching another spot, he realizes there's nothing there and that the trap failed. Our hero wonders if the location wasn't good and decides to change the trap's position. He continues his journey through the forest, carrying the rabbit he managed to hunt. As he walks, he gets inspired by a spider's web to improve his traps. With a new idea in mind, he decides to test the durability of one of the old traps. He stomps hard on one of the ice daggers, breaking it instantly. Seeing that the installation has no problems, he's happy, as hunting will become easier. With his new techniques, he manages to hunt several birds and ties them to a branch. Thrilled with his success, our protagonist walks through the forest, singing with joy. After a long day of hunting, he finally returns to the village with his reward. He walks through the market streets to sell everything he got. He approaches the stall of the vendor who always buys his game. The vendor is happy with the quality of the animals and gives him a thumbs up. While the man prepares the birds, our protagonist watches everything attentively. Soon after, the vendor hands him a bag full of shiny coins as payment. Arad's jaw drops at so many coins, and he wonders if he's going to get rich. But remembering his mother, he gets serious and thinks about what he'll do with all that money. With the money in hand, he decides that maybe he should buy a present for his mother. He starts looking for something special in the city market stalls. In the end, our protagonist ends up buying a very pretty bouquet of flowers. With the gift in hand, he begins his long journey back to the village. He finally arrives at a narrow alley that seems to be the way to his house. As he gets closer, he notices that no one has arrived yet and feels a little relieved. He looks at a broken flower pot that he left there at the entrance on purpose. It turns out he created a simple sensor using magic to know who enters the house. When the switch is triggered, a fireball lights a candle inside the pot. Our hero smiles, proud of his clever little invention, and prepares to go inside. He enters the house with the bouquet of flowers and announces that he's home, but looking at the pot, he realizes the sensor didn't work and gets confused. To make matters worse, he notices that the switch he left there is also gone. With a surprised expression, he gets closer to investigate what happened. To his shock, the candle is still intact, and he's left wondering what happened. He's sure he left the sensor there in the morning, and that the magic lasts a whole day. If it didn't disappear on its own and wasn't broken, he wonders if it was dispelled. Our hero remembers that in games, there are spells that nullify magic, but he doesn't understand why. The memory of the attackers and the mysterious men then comes to his mind, and he connects the dots. With wide eyes, he comes to a terrible conclusion and wonders if the target was him. The scene then shifts to the bouquet of flowers he bought for his mother. Now the flowers are in a vase on the windowsill, decorating the house with their vibrant colors. His mother yawns and calls for Robin, asking if he's awake for breakfast yet. With a grumpy face, his brother complains about having rye bread and asks if there's no regular bread. The table is shown with a few pieces of rye bread that seem to be the only option. His mother apologizes and says that's all they have for today, and our hero eats in silence. Robin picks up the bread with disgust, complains that it tastes awful, and lets out a sigh. Our protagonist then reflects that because he was an only child for a while, Robin grew up with a noble's pride. But suddenly, a knock on the door interrupts breakfast, and our hero turns around, surprised. He's curious and wonders who could be knocking on the door so early. Their mother asks who's knocking, and the family stares at the door with curiosity. But after what happened, our hero is on alert and decides he needs to be careful. Suddenly, the door opens, and a man in a suit apologizes for interrupting their meal. He introduces himself and asks if this is the residence of the Veal family. Robin stops eating and stares at the man, confused, not understanding what's happening. His mother confirms it's the right house and asks who the mysterious man is. He apologizes for the late introduction and reveals that he serves the powerful Lord Barton. The entire family's jaw drops, shocked by the revelation. Robin gets excited and asks if someone from the main family came to see him. His father scolds him, and our hero thinks about how his brother acts like a noble at times like these. The family falls silent, observing the butler, who looks at them with a serious expression. The man remains standing at the door, waiting for a response. Their father introduces himself as Lion E. Veal, the head of this family. The butler then explains that he has come on behalf of Count Barton to escort Lord Arid. Robin and his mother are shocked to hear that the butler came for Arid. Their father just says he understands, with a serious look on his face. Our protagonist is shocked and wonders what on earth is happening. Suddenly, Robin shouts and lunges forward angrily, not believing what he heard. But his father holds him back tightly to prevent him from doing anything foolish. Robin stares at his father, confused, and the butler watches everything in silence. His father then turns to Arid and asks if he heard what the butler said. Our hero confirms and his father says it's okay while holding Robin back. He tells Arid to hurry up so as not not to cause any trouble for the butler. Suddenly, the house door slams shut with a very loud and startling noise. We see that Robin is being held back by his parents to keep him from leaving the house. The door remains closed while the commotion happens inside. Outside, the butler apologizes for making Arid walk to the carriage. The carriage they had prepared couldn't enter the village because it was too large. Our protagonist says it's okay and that it's no problem. The butler asks him to get in, and our hero stares with his jaw dropped. A super fancy carriage from the count was parked there with 2 masked guards waiting for him. It was so luxurious it looked like it came out of a fairy tale, and our hero was impressed. He thanks the guards and steps on the stool to finally get into the carriage. As he steps onto the fluffy red carpet, he realizes he's never seen anything so soft in his life. Our protagonist then starts to take off his shoes, thinking it's a noble custom, but the butler tells him to keep his shoes on, and our boy apologizes, embarrassed. The carriage departs and begins to travel down a beautiful road lined with trees. Our hero sits there looking out the window as the landscape flies by. Suddenly, the butler asks about his brother's anger earlier. He noticed that Arid seemed worried about the atmosphere and wants to know why. Our boy is surprised that the man even noticed where he was looking. Arid explains that he was afraid his brother would provoke the guards, and the butler praises his perception. The butler confirms that if Robin had lunged forward, things would have gotten ugly for him. Our hero understands that there are definitely guards nearby protecting the carriage. The butler continues to praise Arod, saying that everyone in the mansion is talking about him. Our hero gets anxious with all the praise and wonders if the man is being sarcastic. The butler then offers to give Arid some advice, and the boy agrees immediately. He reminds him that, although young, he is a noble and needs to act like one. Therefore, he expects Arid to treat the servants with a noble bearing, and our hero apologizes. He bows, completely embarrassed by the scolding from the older butler. He just says he understood the lesson and promises to behave. The butler then smiles with satisfaction and says that's exactly how he should act. Our hero finds this all very difficult, as he comes from a world where respecting elders is normal. Suddenly, the carriage stops, and our protagonist spots the count's mansion on the horizon. The boy is startled by the sudden stop, and the butler asks what's wrong. Our hero says the road looks different, and the butler confirms his suspicion. This is a road exclusively for carriages, built by the count and several merchants. The butler looks out the window and says they've just entered the toll road. Our hero understands that this is like a highway with a toll from his world. He's impressed because what the government does with huge budgets, the nobles do on their own. The butler then asks how he knew the road had changed, and our hero explains. The man praises his excellent observation skills with a smile. Our protagonist then looks out the window, curious to see more of this incredible road. Suddenly, he sees several golden glows, and his green eyes shine with excitement. He asks the butler to stop the carriage for a moment, and the man is confused. The butler knocks on the window, and the carriage stops immediately for our boy to get out. Our protagonist jumps out of the carriage and runs to the middle of the road to see what it is. He stares at the road ahead, preparing to use his special power. Suddenly, several golden mana traces begin to glow brightly in front of him. He wonders if all those traces are from the same magic and is amazed. Our hero tries to figure out what kind of magic it is by analyzing the traces. By absorbing the fragments, he reaches the limit and manages to acquire a new skill. The butler asks if there's anything there, and our hero says it's nothing important. Our protagonist stares at a gate at the end of the road and is curious. He continues on his way next to the butler with a new power in his hands. The carriage continues its journey, and our hero tests his new magical ability. He notices the golden traces shine in his hand with a new power. He's amazed, as the magic looks like the lines on the palm of his hand. He wonders about the principle of that magic and why there were traces there. The butler then asks if something is wrong, as he looks like he just had a wish granted. Our protagonist asks if it's true, and the butler confirms that's what it looks like. He denies it with an awkward smile but thinks that's the absolute truth, because the new magic he learned is called invisible, and it's exactly what he wanted. If he keeps learning magic like this, he'll surpass the age limit very quickly. For him, learning more than 7 spells at 6 years old is theoretically impossible. He was looking for a way to solve this problem, and the invisible magic makes it possible. If he uses the invisible magic to change the appearance of his own magic, no one will suspect a thing. The carriage then crosses a gigantic lake, and the count's mansion appears on the horizon. They finally arrive at the mansion, and our hero's jaw drops at the grandeur of the place. Our protagonist prepares to get out and thinks it's amazing how fast carriages are. Suddenly, a Dalmatian dog appears and starts licking our protagonist's face. The butler picks up the dog and our hero happily pets it. Our protagonist remembers something, and the butler asks what he wants. He then asks the butler to investigate the place where he stopped the carriage earlier. He explains that it's the place where he saw the golden mana traces on the road. He says it's just a hunch, but he thinks there's something hidden there. The butler's eyes widen, shocked by our boy's sharp perception. Seeing the man's reaction, Arad is sure there's something mysterious in that place. Our protagonist enters the mansion and is amazed by a grand piano. He's also impressed by a gigantic crystal chandelier that decorates the ceiling. With so many many luxury items he concludes that the Count's family is absurdly wealthy. Suddenly, a knock on the door catches his attention, and he turns to see who it is. Three maids appear with a tea cart to serve our protagonist. One of them serves him high-quality tea, and our hero is confused. Suddenly, one of the maids stares at him with curiosity, and he doesn't understand why. Our protagonist asks if anything is wrong, and the other maids immediately scold her. The little girl apologizes, and their head maid explains that everyone was excited to meet him because Lord Arad is very well known among the staff, and everyone wanted to see him in person. The head maid apologizes and says she will ensure the others are properly disciplined. Our hero panics and says there's no need to punish anyone for that. The butler, who was watching from a distance, praises our protagonist's noble attitude. Our boy lets out a sigh of relief for having managed to resolve the situation. With a smile, he says that if there's someone they want to meet, he can call for them if the Count allows it. The maids then become completely smitten by our boy's kindness and charm. The head maid thinks he is even more noble than the rumors said. The scene focuses on the cup of tea that was served to our protagonist. Exhausted, our hero throws himself onto the armchair and thinks that living like a noble is not easy at all. Suddenly, a mysterious voice laughs and comments on how young he is, and our hero is startled. The voice continues, saying it's good to see him, and a figure in a red robe approaches. Startled, our protagonist gets up from the armchair and asks who the mysterious person is. The figure reveals himself to be a bald old man with glasses who introduces himself as Ilum. Our protagonist introduces himself as Arad's son Vale, nervously adjusting his tie. The old man laughs and says our hero is a very interesting boy, leaving him confused. Our protagonist wonders why the old man called him interesting. Ilum explains that his way of being polite seems natural and not something trained. It's more like a habit built over many years and is different from other nobles. The old man smiles and says that's why he finds him so interesting. Our hero is embarrassed by the compliment and doesn't know how to react. He thinks he never imagined hearing something like that in another fantasy world. Our protagonist changes the subject and asks if the old man needs anything from him. Ilum says he wants to ask about what he asked the butler to investigate. He asks how Arad knew there was something hidden on the road earlier. Our hero reveals that he can see the traces left by the magic used in that place. The old man is shocked and asks if he can really see the mana traces. Our protagonist decides to tell the truth, as making something up would be dangerous. The old man is impressed and says it's been a long time since he met someone like him. He asks if the boy can see the mana trace he is holding. Our protagonist's eyes widen, shocked to see the mana trace in his hand. To everyone's surprise, he confirms he can see the mana trace beneath his feet. Ilum takes off his glasses and is shocked, as the boy can really see the invisible. Our hero then just nods, confirming he can see everything there. Suddenly, the door opens, and the old man and our protagonist turn to see who it is. To everyone's surprise, it was Count Barton who appears in the room. Our protagonist bows to greet the powerful noble who is observing him. The Count asks Ilum what he thought of the boy, and the old man answers. He confirms that the boy can see magic traces, and even identified an incorrect spell. The old man laughs and says it was nothing, and our hero watches the scene in silence. Ilum says they'll talk another time, and our protagonist gets excited. He shouts it was, thrilled at the chance to learn more about magic. The scene pans out, showing our protagonist alone in the room with the powerful Count. The Count is left alone with Arad, and the atmosphere in the room becomes a bit tense. He begins to explain about the area where our protagonist stopped the carriage. For a long time, there have been bad rumors about the construction of that mysterious place. Our hero understands that's where the traces of the invisible magic were hidden. The Count continues, saying that if they were just rumors, they could ignore them, but the magic changes everything. Our protagonist is shocked to learn they already had an expert investigating. The noble praises Arad for discovering the secret of that place, and the boy is happy. Our hero thanks him awkwardly for the praise from the powerful Count Barton. The two are silent for a moment, and our protagonist gets a little nervous. The Count strokes his beard and seems to be thinking about something important. He then praises Arad's father for raising him so well, and the boy is surprised. The noble asks our hero to sit down, and he thanks him for the kindness. Our protagonist sits in the armchair and waits for what the Count is going to say. The Count notices the boy is a bit tense and asks what's wrong. Arad explains that he's worried, because if he behaves badly, he could tarnish his father's reputation. The Count praises the depth of our hero's thoughts for someone so young. Our protagonist remembers his brother Robin as an example of what not to do. The Count explains that nobles carry the family name and their people on their shoulders. Every action they take reflects on their family's reputation forever. He tells Arad never to forget this, and our hero agrees immediately. He sits there in silence, processing the Count's advice. The noble smiles at the boy's seriousness and seems satisfied with the conversation. Our hero thanks him for the tea and prepares for what's to come. The Count changes the subject and says they will now move on to the main topic. He asks where Arad heard about the ancient magic he wrote about. Our protagonist remembers the Count's promise to send someone to talk to him. The noble looks at him with a serious gaze and asks if he knows his real name. Our hero is confused and asks if his name isn't Lord Barton, and he denies it. The family crest appears, and the Count reveals that in the past, he was called by another name. Our protagonist has an idea and finally understands what the count meant. It's like the titles famous people had in the old days, a kind of epithet. He remembers that he doesn't know the patriarch's name and can't find anything in his memory. The Count reveals that he used to be called the Count of Meteor Strike. Our protagonist eyes wide and shocked by the powerful noble's revelation. Because Meteor Strike is a super strong spell used in boss fights and games, the Count confirms that this is one of the ancient magics, and our hero is stunned. The noble looks at him with a serious gaze, and our protagonist is speechless. Our hero tries to play it cool and says it sounds like an incredible spell, and starts to panic. The Count says they should continue, and our protagonist agrees, very nervously. The noble reveals that all the titles of Count and Duke originate from ancient magics, but since no one uses them anymore, almost nobody knows they are ancestral magics. Our protagonist understands the situation and stands there, thoughtful about what he heard. He remains silent, processing the new information he just received. Our hero calls for the Count, and the noble asks what he wants to know now. Our hero asks what the Count protected as the Count of Meteor Strike. The noble repeats the question and seems intrigued by our boy's curiosity. He says that if something like that really exists, that place must be the answer. Our protagonist is shocked to realize the Count is talking about ancient magic. With a gleam in his eyes, our hero realizes he's finally found the clue he was looking for. All excited, he asks what kind of place it is, and the Count looks at him seriously. The noble continues to stare at him with a serious gaze, and our protagonist gets a little scared. He realizes he got too excited and apologizes awkwardly. The Count laughs at the boy's reaction and says it's okay, as being curious is a good thing. He continues, saying it's wonderful to see someone so inquisitive, and our hero gets embarrassed. The noble becomes thoughtful and wonders how he's going to explain the situation to the boy. Our protagonist asks if he can't show him the place, and the Count explains the title, the territory, and the magic were granted by His Majesty the King, so he can't show it to others without permission, and our hero is disappointed. He says he understands and that it's a shame he can't see the mysterious place. The Count then tells him to wait a few days, and our hero's jaw drops. The noble is going to speak with His Majesty about the matter, and the boy is speechless. Our protagonist agrees, thrilled with the news he just received. He thanks the Count, who leaves the room, leaving our hero alone. Our protagonist stands there, thoughtful about the place related to ancient magic. He concludes that the way titles are chosen isn't so different from his world. With a smile on his face, he shouts with excitement, as this really feels like an RPG. Suddenly, a knock on the door interrupts him, and he turns to see who is there. He wonders who could be this time, and a voice asks to enter the room. Three maids appear and say they have come to serve Lord Arad on the Count's orders. Our protagonist greets them awkwardly and notices they are very young. One of the girls in particular seems to be the same age as him, and he is surprised. The atmosphere becomes a bit strange, and our hero doesn't know what to do. Our protagonist wonders what's going on with all this silence. He takes the initiative and says a half-heartedly to break the ice. Our protagonist asks why they are just standing there doing nothing. One of them explains that they came to serve him and that he can ask for whatever he wants. He realizes they were waiting for him to say something and asks to see his room. He thinks he needs to rest alone after such a busy day. The group walks down the hallway, and our protagonist observes the maids. Their leader walks in front with a serious and professional posture. Our protagonist thinks how common it is to have children working, but he can't get used to it. Suddenly, one of the maids trips and falls to the ground, startling everyone. The other maid immediately scolds her, and the little girl apologizes for her mistake. The leader pulls her up forcefully and scolds her for not knowing what's wrong with her. Our protagonist just stands there watching the scene in silence and a bit shocked. The maid leads him to his room and says he can use this room. Our hero looks at her and notices she seems very nervous about the situation. Meanwhile, the other maids are talking in the hallway about what just happened. Our protagonist enters the room and is amazed by its luxury. The little girl bows to serve tea to our protagonist. With trembling hands, she offers the cup of tea, and our hero looks at her curiously. Suddenly, the leader shouts that the cup handle is facing the wrong way, and the girl is startled. Our hero then remembers a busy street from his past life. He recalls the noise and lights of the city as he walked alone. A Japanese lantern glows in the night and leads him to a cozy bar. He remembers a scolding he got from his boss, who asked if he knew what he did wrong. The boss tells him to say something, and he can't taste anything. He remembers reaching for a skewer to eat, but his boss stops him. With a sigh, he asks for the check and prepares to leave. Back in the present, the skewer and the glass of beer are still in front of him. Our hero calls the maids and asks what's going on here. He asks why they are shouting so loudly in front of him, wanting an explanation. The leader gets flustered and tries to explain it was because of the other girl. Our protagonist asks if they normally shout like that in someone's presence. The leader denies it, and he asks if they are doing it because he seems like an easy target. The maids apologize immediately and say that was not their intention. The leader then then glares at the little girl with pure anger and scolds her with her eyes. Our protagonist lets out a tired sigh and says that's enough of this mess. The maids stand there afraid of our protagonist's reaction. He then tells all of them to get out of the room, and they agree immediately, scared. The leader pulls the little girl by the arm, and the two run out of the room. But our hero asks the little girl who fell to stay, and she turns around, surprised. The other maids look back, not understanding what's happening. Our protagonist asks if they have any complaints, and they deny it immediately. The two run out of the room and ask for leave before closing the door. Our hero then sits on the bed and lets out a tired sigh. He wonders if his attitude was noble and feels a little regretful. That scene reminded him of uncomfortable situations from his past life. Our protagonist feels bad for taking out his frustration on the girls. He apologizes to the little girl, who says it's okay. He asks her to bring some tea because he's thirsty, and she agrees immediately. The little girl turns to go, and our hero tells her not to rush. He continues, saying she can take all the time she needs, and the girl is surprised. Our protagonist says that if it's a mistake that can be fixed, she can try again. The little girl is speechless at our protagonist's kindness and agrees. With a smile, she turns to go, and our hero feels a little better. He asks if she came to the mansion recently, and the girl confirms. Our hero remembers how hard it is to start in a new and unknown place. When he didn't understand anything and still got scolded, his mind would go blank. But thanks to that, he became a very kind senior to his juniors at work. Our protagonist laughs and apologizes, saying he was talking to himself. The little girl returns with tea and a slice of cake for our protagonist. He praises her work and says that a rookie's goal isn't to avoid mistakes, but to learn the job properly, and that people forget what it was like to learn. Our protagonist calls the little girl, and she looks at him with a curious expression. She asks why he's being so kind, and our hero is at a loss for words. Our protagonist asks if this cheered her up a bit, and the girl agrees. With a smile, he says he hopes she makes fewer mistakes due to nervousness from now on. The next morning, the sun rises and illuminates the roof of the Count's mansion. Our hero wakes up with a sore back and complains that the bed is too soft. He gets up and stumbles to the window to see what's happening outside. Our protagonist peeks through the window and is curious about a strange commotion. He wonders what it is and notices the maids are whispering about something. The maids enter the room to wish him good morning and bring clean clothes for him. Our hero asks what happened as it's very noisy outside. One of them explains that the commotion is because of the little girl who served him yesterday. Our protagonist's jaw drops, surprised by the news. A brush gently and delicately passes through our hero's white hair. While his hair is being brushed, he thinks about how strange it feels to be served by someone. While the others make the bed, our protagonist continues to have his hair brushed. He looks at himself in the mirror, watching the maid's work with curiosity. Suddenly, a bun appears in his hair, and the maid is confused about what she did. Our hero asks if the little girl's name was Clarkus, and the maid confirms. He asks if she's still at the church, and the maid says she's already back at the mansion. Our protagonist wonders what magic she received, and the maid says she doesn't know. With a smile, he says he hopes she can use the new magic well, as she is diligent, but the maid grumbles that the girl is slow, so the magic must be slow too. The atmosphere becomes super tense, and the maid covers her mouth, afraid she said too much. Our hero glares at the two of them, and silence fills the room. He asks where Clarkus is, and the head maid offers to take him to her. The head maid calls one of the girls and tells her to go see butler Joseph. The maid is shocked by the order and doesn't know what to do. The head maid tells her to go now, and the girl obeys with a serious look on her face. She leaves the room with her head down, while our hero watches the scene. The maid leaves the room, and our protagonist watches the scene with curiosity. He asks if Joseph is the butler who came to meet him, and the head maid confirms. Our protagonist asks if the butler is scary, and the other maid trembles with fear. With a smile, the head maid explains that if you work properly, he is a very kind person. Our hero realizes she didn't deny it and imagines the scene of the maid being scolded. The head maid calls him and says they are going to the courtyard to find Clarkus. The group walks down the hallway, and our protagonist observes the mansion's architecture. He peeks through the window, seeing the mansion's courtyard from a distance. The sun illuminates the mansion's facade, revealing a well-kept and beautiful garden. Our protagonist peeks through the window and sees a group of people in the garden. He notices that Clarkus is kneeling in front of the old man Ilum and two other men. The little girl looks at the ground with her eyes full of tears and seems very sad. Our hero walks through the courtyard and is a little confused by the situation. Suddenly, one of the men he saw in the garden greets him with a wave. He thanks him for helping him last time, and our hero is confused. The man tells him not to be like that, and our hero feels awkward. He ruffles our protagonist's hair, saying he doesn't need to be so formal. Our hero asks if he heard about Clarkus, and the man confirms. He asks if she received magic, and the man says yes, but there's a problem. Our protagonist asks what happened, and the two look at the group in the garden. The man explains that she received the magic but still can't use it. The little girl stands there dejected, while the others watch her attentively. Our hero asks if it's true, and the man says everyone is giving her advice. Clarkus keeps trying to use the magic without success, and gets more and more frustrated. The man says she has been trying nonstop since she got back from the church. Our protagonist asks if he is worried about her, and the man man immediately denies it. The two stand there in the courtyard, watching the scene from a distance. Our hero remembers what Ilum said about him identifying an incorrect spell. He thinks that if what the old man said is true, he might have an idea, because mana traces appear even when a spell fails, and he can absorb them. Our hero becomes thoughtful and tries to understand why there are no mana traces there. Even though she has failed so many times, there is no sign of magic in the area. Suddenly, our protagonist has a brilliant idea and looks at Clarkus with surprise. He turns to the little girl and finally understands what's happening there. The group then prepares to help Clarkus use her new magic for the first time. The blue-haired man calls for our hero and seems interested in him. He asks if Arad is from the Count's secondary family branch, and our protagonist confirms. The man looks at him with a mischievous smile, and our hero gets a bad feeling. Another girl approaches and pushes Clarkus to try using the magic. The man gives our hero a pat on the back and encourages him to help the girl. Our protagonist gets annoyed and thinks that he's actually an old man. He approaches Clarkus, understanding the feeling of a parent watching their child do something. The little girl greets him awkwardly, and our hero wishes her a happy birthday. She thanks him, and he asks if she received magic, and the girl confirms, a bit embarrassed. The scene pans out, showing the two of them talking in the middle of the mansion's garden. Our hero asks what kind of magic she received, and the girl gets flustered. She stands there with her hands clasped, not knowing what to say to him. Our protagonist says he wants to see her magic, and the girl is surprised. She is silent for a moment, her eyes wide with surprise. The little girl explains that she hasn't been able to use the magic yet and is ashamed to fail. Our hero understands the situation and has an idea to help her overcome her fear. He asks if she's so afraid of failing that she pretended to use the magic. The little girl is shocked and asks how he knew, and our hero explains about the traces. He says it's okay to try again, and the girl is confused. Our protagonist repeats the words that comforted her to make her feel better. He smiles at her with a gentle look, and the girl gets flustered. The little girl looks at him with her bright blue eyes and seems more confident. She clasps her hands and prepares to try using the magic once more. With a determined look, she says she will try again for Lord Arid. Her eyes shine with a new determination, and she prepares for the spell. The little girl closes her eyes and concentrates to use the magic for the first time. Our protagonist and the others watch the scene with great attention and expectation. She manages to use the magic, and a golden silhouette appears behind her. Suddenly, a golden energy envelopes our protagonist and the little girl, who are both shocked. The old man Ilum's eyes widen, shocked by what he just witnessed. The little girl extends her hand, and our hero realizes something has changed in him. He stands there with his hand glowing, while the others watch him from a distance. Our protagonist remembers how much he loved RPGs in his past life. In battles, buff mages temporarily increase allies' stats. They are essential for fighting strong enemies like stage bosses. If you ignore buffs just because you can't see them, you don't understand the game. The little girl asks how it was, and our hero touches her hand with curiosity. He concludes that her spell must be healing or some kind of buff. Our protagonist asks what the name of the spell she used is. She reveals the name of the magic is Quick Cast, and our hero is shocked. He starts running to test the effect of the Quick Cast magic, but he realizes he doesn't move any faster and is confused by the result. He then extends his hand and prepares to cast a fireball with the buff active. To everyone's surprise, the fireball materializes at an absurd speed. Our hero casts the magic with all his might, and an explosion occurs. The group turns, shocked by the speed and power of our boy's attack. The man who was talking to him, his jaw dropped, not believing what he just saw. The little girl stands there, not understanding what happened, and our hero approaches. He congratulates her, saying that her casting speed is incredibly fast. The little girl denies it, and our hero says she is absolutely wrong about that, because he is obsessed with buffs and knows that speed is super important in a fight. He explains that her magic is one of the most important ones that exist. The little girl is speechless at our protagonist's excitement. One of the men agrees with Arid and says that is indeed an incredible spell. It's a magic that increases casting speed and is extremely important. He continues, saying that if she tells the Count about the magic, her salary will increase 50 times. Our protagonist gives the little girl a thumbs up and encourages her to continue. With a radiant smile, Clarkus finally understands the value of her new magic. Old Ilum laughs and says he's meeting a lot of little mages this year. One of the men calls for Arad and points to a person who is approaching. Suddenly, the red-haired girl Arya appears at the mansion door with a maid. She glares at our protagonist with a look of pure anger, seeming very irritated. Our hero recognizes the girl and wonders what she's doing there. With a forced smile, Arya greets Lord Arid, and our protagonist feels awkward. He greets her back and asks if she's been well since last time. Our protagonist asks what brings her here, and she explains she came on her grandfather's orders. With a proud smile, Arya confirms she is there on an important mission. Our hero jokes and says he thought she came to see him. He stretches, and the little girl gets all flustered by his joke. Suddenly, Arya's face turns bright red, and our protagonist wonders if he hit the mark. He calls for Arya, who jealously asks who the other girl is. He explains that she is a maid who received magic on that special day. Arya looks at her with a serious gaze, and the little girl gets all flustered. The red-haired girl asks for her name, and Clarkus introduces herself, very nervously. Our protagonist asks what's wrong, and Clarkus says that Lady Arya spoke to her. She reveals that at the last party, she found Arya incredibly cool and beautiful. Arya gets all flustered by the compliment and doesn't know how to react. Our hero watches the scene with a smile and a hint of jealousy in the air. He suggests that they all practice magic together, and the girls agree. Our protagonist asks if they want to train all together, and they get excited. He says that since Arya is the senior, she can show Clarkus a demonstration. The little girl looks at Arya with her eyes shining with admiration and expectation. Arya feels all important and wonders what she should do. Our hero asks what she thinks, and Arya agrees to help the newcomer. With a proud smile, Arya prepares to show off her magical skills. Our protagonist says that's great news, and Clarkus thanks her excitedly. The girls start their training together, and a maid holds a parasol for them. Our hero thinks about how Arya is someone who takes care of the people around her. One of the men approaches and affectionately pinches our protagonist's cheek. He wonders what Arad's true personality is, and our hero is confused. The man says that kind of noble attitude can wait until he's older. Suddenly, the count appears in the courtyard in imposing armor, drawing attention. He observes the scene, noticing how everyone seems to be having fun in the garden. The count greets everyone, and the group turns to welcome him with respect. Arya and Clarkus bow to the count, and he observes them with a serious gaze. He tells Clarkus to keep working hard, and the little girl agrees immediately. The count calls for Arid, and our protagonist approaches, all serious and curious. With a determined look, the count tells our hero to prepare for something important. He reveals with a smile that permission has been granted by the king. Our protagonist's jaw drops, shocked by the news. A carriage travels along a dirt road surrounded by trees and greenery. Inside, our protagonist, the count, and Arya talk about the mysterious place. Our hero asks if it's okay for Arya to come along, and she smiles excitedly. She looks at the count with a curious gaze, waiting for the noble's answer. The count smiles and says it's fine, as he has known Arya's grandfather for a long time. He explains that her family also has things they need to protect, and our hero understands. The count asks Arya to tell Arid her family's title name. She reveals that her house's title name is Manahil, and our hero is shocked. Our protagonist repeats the name and tries to understand the meaning behind it. He concludes that it's a spell that restores mana or MP, like in games, because the ways to recover MP in games are extremely limited and rare. Our hero understands why the magic was so rare, and the carriage continues on its way. Back at the mansion, a few leaves fall from the trees with the gentle morning breeze. One of the maids asks if Clarkus is going to continue practicing, and she confirms. The little girl thanks her for her concern, and the two continue their conversation in the courtyard. The maid says goodbye, and Clarkus is left alone in the mansion's garden. With a determined look, the little girl begins to practice her new magic relentlessly. She remembers what the count and Arya told her about continuing to work hard, but what motivates her most are the words of Lord Arid, who encouraged her not to give up. With her eyes full of determination, the little girl continues her training with all her might. Time passes, and we see the count's carriage traveling along a dirt road. The landscape changes, and they enter an area with cliffs and a river in the background. The carriage continues on its way, pulled by two very furry and large animals. Suddenly, the count's voice calls for Arid, and our protagonist turns to listen. The noble asks our hero to explain to Arya what a title name is. Our hero looks at the girl and the count, who smiles, satisfied with the situation. Arid asks if her family's title name is Manahil, and the girl confirms. With a smile, Arya says she knows the count's as the Count of Meteor Strike, and he agrees. Our protagonist reveals that the title name is also the name of an ancient magic. Arya is confused, and our hero explains that it's an incredible magic that no longer exists. He asks the count if the explanation he gave Arya was sufficient. With a satisfied smile, the noble confirms that it was more than enough. Arya becomes thoughtful about ancient magic, wondering if it's some kind of incredible power. She then gets excited, asking if they are going to a place related to this magic. She says her family must also have a place for Manahil, and Arid thinks about how normal people don't think about using ancient magic. Our protagonist reflects that the count asked how he knew but never questioned why he could use the magic. Our hero concludes that the idea of obtaining magic in a specific place is something only a gamer like him would think of. He remembers when he obtained the resurrection of the dead magic and decides to call for the count. The noble turns to him and asks what our protagonist wants to know now. With a curious look, Arid asks if the noble happens to know the magic resurrection of the dead. The count is shocked by the question and strokes his beard with a very serious expression. He reveals that resurrection of the dead is actually the title name of a duke. Our hero asks if there is also a place for this magic, but the count immediately denies it. A dukedom is formed by several counties, so the duke does not govern a single territory. Our protagonist understands the situation and concludes that there is no specific place for this magic. He wonders why a fragment of that magic was in the forest. Suddenly, Arya lets out a scream and startles our protagonist, who doesn't understand understand anything. The Count asks the girl what's wrong and why she screamed out of nowhere. Arya explains that she remembered a new technique she learned recently. She says that's why she had gone there but ended up forgetting along the way. Arad asks if she wasn't there on her grandfather's orders, and the girl gets embarrassed. She asks the Count permission to show her new technique while pushing a rod. The Count agrees and says they should take a short break before continuing their journey. The carriage stops in a place with a beautiful landscape for them to rest. Meanwhile, the servants and animals take the opportunity to drink some fresh water from the river. Near the river, Arya concentrates to show her new technique and creates a fireball. Our protagonist watches the girl attentively as she prepares for the spell. The red-haired girl gathers a large amount of mana in her hands with difficulty, but suddenly the magic explodes and the girl screams in surprise at what happened. The Count asks if she's okay and comments that it seems to be a very difficult technique. Arad warns Arya that if she keeps trying so many times, she'll run out of mana, as this is already the 10th time. But the girl tells him not to worry, because she will definitely succeed this time. With a determined look, the red-haired girl concentrates and gathers the mana in her hands once more. A large explosion of flame occurs in front of her, showing all the girl's power. To everyone's surprise, she finally manages to create a fire bird and celebrates. The Count and our hero are jaw-dropped, and the noble praises the flaming bird she created. Our protagonist thinks that's incredible, as normal people wouldn't think of shaping fire that way. He wonders if it's all thanks to a child's imagination, and the girl smiles proudly. But he concludes that even if she thought of it by chance, controlling magic that way requires a lot of effort. Our hero praises Arya and says he is truly impressed with what she just did. The red-haired girl gets embarrassed by our protagonist's sincere compliment. The Count also praises her and says that almost no mage can do that, and that her grandfather would be happy. The girl looks at the Count with a confused expression, not understanding what he meant. She reveals that she hasn't shown her grandfather yet and will show him when she gets home. Our hero and the Count exchange a surprised look at the little girl's revelation. The Count lets out a laugh and ruffles our hero's hair, very happy. Our protagonist asks Arya if she can also make the bird fly. With a confident smile, the red-haired girl replies that of course she can. She launches the fire bird into the sky, and the two watch the scene, amazed. The fire creature soars into the heavens and looks like a real phoenix flying freely, but suddenly, the bird falls and explodes on the ground, raising a small cloud of smoke. Arya turns around with a proud smile on her face, very happy with her new power. The Count and our hero are jaw-dropped, and the noble praises the little girl's feat. He comments that the power is a bit low and asks if she can improve it, but our protagonist says he thinks the magic is already good as it is, because if a fire bird flies toward the enemy, it will cause a psychological shock. Arya gets embarrassed by the compliment, her cheeks red with shame. The Count and Arya watch our protagonist walk away to analyze the attack. He concludes that the magic is weaker than a fireball and that destructive power is important. But suddenly, he realizes he is wrong and needs to get rid of that kind of thinking. He wonders why he keeps judging things by their appearance or power. If he remains stuck in common sense, his mind won't be able to think flexibly. Arya calls for Arad and asks what's wrong with him, and the Count looks at him. With a smile, our hero asks Arya to teach him the magic she just used. The red-haired girl agrees immediately but warns him that it won't be easy at all. The animal pulling the carriage looks at the sky and the surrounding vegetation. The carriage continues its journey along the beach while the sun shines on the horizon. Arya explains that if he imagines water or sand in the palm of his hand, the process becomes easier. Our hero prepares to cast the spell and says he will start lightly, but to everyone's surprise, a gigantic explosion of fire occurs in front of him. Our protagonist kneels on the ground, surrounded by the flames he himself created. He comments that the magic is huge, thinking that getting it right on the first try is very difficult. Arya and the Count say he needs more practice, and our hero agrees. But he had no idea what was going to happen at their destination, nor that Clarkus would be in danger. The carriage continues its journey, pulled by the two large, furry animals. Back in the carriage, our protagonist is impressed by the golden glows in his hand. He creates an ice sculpture, and Arya praises the interesting shape he made. Soon after, our hero creates several other ice sculptures resembling RPG slimes. The Count is impressed and says the boy really has a lot of skill with magic, but our protagonist looks less than pleased, as he is still not satisfied. He tries to create a fireball, but the magic becomes unstable, and he grumbles in frustration. Our hero concludes that fire is harder to shape, and that the heat gets in his way. Arya notices his difficulty and decides to give him a little help. She advises him to imagine a shape that is familiar to him when creating it. She reveals that the person who taught her told her to think about folding a paper bird. Our protagonist understands the tip and compares the technique to Asura origami. He becomes thoughtful, trying to remember a familiar shape he knows well. Suddenly, he has a brilliant idea, and Arya asks what's wrong with him. Our hero says excitedly that he had a great great idea and wants to test it right now. With a smile, he wonders what would happen if he used the invisible magic to help. Our hero analyzes that Aria's firebird causes physical and mental damage but is difficult to control, so he decides to create a normal fireball and use the invisible magic to make it look like a firebird. He remembers that when he learned the invisible magic, he already planned to test it with the fireball. Aria and the Count watch Hero with an expression of expectation. Our protagonist prepares to cast both spells at the same time with great concentration. He tries to use the fireball in his right hand and the invisible magic in his left hand simultaneously, but the effort leaves him completely exhausted, and he falls to the ground, powerless, with tears in his eyes. Aria shouts Arad's name and runs to help him, very worried. Our protagonist wakes up confused and asks for Aria, who is right beside him. He puts a hand to his head, groaning in pain without understanding what's happening. He continues to grumble, and Aria looks at him with a worried expression. He asks what happened, and the girl replies that he suddenly passed out. Our protagonist is shocked to learn he passed out and wonders why. The Count explains that he pushed himself too hard and that this is a classic case of mana exhaustion. Our hero asks what mana exhaustion is, and the Count explains it's when you use too much mana. He warns Aria to be careful as mana exhaustion is linked to life. The red-haired girl agrees with the noble with a very serious expression. The Count turns to Arad, and our protagonist agrees with the warning. He lies there with a thoughtful expression, trying to understand what happened. Our hero wonders if he passed out because he used two spells at once. He questions if it was due to lack of mana or if the magic cannot be used simultaneously. Our protagonist panics, because if that's the case, his perfect plan will go down the drain. But suddenly the Count says that what he did was splendid, and our hero doesn't understand. The noble reveals that before he lost consciousness, he managed to see a magnificent firebird. Our protagonist breaks into a smile of pure happiness, knowing his plan worked. He celebrates his success, rebuilding his perfect plan with bandages and band-aids. The Count calls him and warns him never to push himself again until his body can handle it. Our hero agrees with the noble's advice and promises to be more careful in the future. He concludes that he shouldn't do anything else that worries the Count, and that mana exhaustion is scary. The carriage continues its journey through a desert landscape under the hot sun. They arrive at a place with two gigantic pillars with a golden symbol on top. Looking down, they spot a giant lake with an island in the middle. The desert landscape mixes with the beauty of that mysterious, shining lake. A makeshift bridge connects the entrance with the small island in the middle of the lake. The carriage is parked at the entrance of the place while the group prepares to enter. Aria's jaw drops and she says the place is beautiful, and our hero agrees. Our protagonist approaches the edge and observes the blue lake with curiosity. The lake water shines with a magical intensity and reflects the desert's blue sky. Our hero asks the Count if this is the place related to the meteor strike. The Count points to the small island in the middle of the lake and says the exact place is there. Our protagonist puts a hand to his forehead to get a better view of the island from afar. Aria asks excitedly if they can go, and our hero agrees immediately. He runs to the bridge and starts crossing it with a smile on his face. Our protagonist arrives on the island and comes across a mysterious structure. He wonders what's on this island, if it's ruins or maybe a hidden treasure, but the Count laughs and says there's nothing like that in this place. He explains that it's just a small, overgrown island with nothing special. Our protagonist looks at the island and seems to understand the situation. He wonders if there's really nothing there, despite it being a place of ancient magic. Our boy has a feeling that there's definitely something hidden there. Suddenly, Aria gets scared, and the Count asks what's wrong with her. She points to a statue and says she thought it just moved. Our protagonist turns and asks if the statue really moved. The red-haired girl confirms and points to the statue, telling them to look. To everyone's surprise, the statue's eyes begin to glow intensely. Soon after, the statue starts to move, and the group is shocked by the scene. The creature's stone body begins to crack as it slowly activates. Its eyes glow with a powerful yellow light, ready for an attack. Suddenly, the statue attacks the Count, who shouts in surprise at the unexpected blow. The noble is thrown far away and wonders what on earth that thing is. The statue faces the group with its red eyes, and a mouth of fire opens on its face. Aria screams that it's magic, and our protagonist is terrified by the scene. The statue's body begins to glow with golden lines as it prepares to attack. The red-haired girl's eye reflects the scene, and she is completely shocked. She screams, warning everyone that the attack is coming from above them. To everyone's shock, a gigantic fireball descends from the sky like a meteor. The Count protects Aria as the statue's arm descends to crush them. Our protagonist stands there alone, watching the devastating attack. With wide eyes, he can't believe what is happening. The meteor crashes into the ground and causes a gigantic fire explosion. Our hero is thrown far away by the force of the impact, and his jaw dropped at the scene. The Count shouts desperately, telling everyone to run as fast as possible. Our protagonist turns and starts running to try to escape that danger. The statue attacks with a fire axe, and the Count and Aria are thrown far away. The red-haired girl falls to the ground and screams in pain and surprise from the attack. The Count shouts Aria's name and runs to try to help her up, but suddenly, our protagonist shields her with his own body, and they fall together. The Count shouts Arab's name and runs toward the two to help them. Our hero hero shouts not to underestimate them and prepares for what's to come. A large fire explosion occurs, and the lake becomes very agitated from the force of the impact. The Count stares at the scene with an expression of surprise and determination. A wave of water rises and destroys the carriage and the nearby servants. A heavy rain begins to fall on the location, and the lake water becomes increasingly agitated. The entire place is enveloped in a cloud of smoke and dust from the explosion. The bridge connecting the island to the entrance becomes completely submerged in water. The smoke begins to clear, revealing the silhouette of the statue in the middle of the lake. Our protagonist groans in pain and asks if Eri is okay after the fall. He hugs her, saying it seems she wasn't hurt by the explosion's impact. The Count approaches and asks if Arad is also okay after all that. Our hero confirms he's fine and asks how the noble is after the attack. The Count says he's fine but seems very surprised by what happened. Our protagonist hides behind the Count. While watching the scene attentively, the statues stand up and the group is shocked to see that they have all activated. The noble recognizes the magic as Meteor Strike, and Arya says the statues are watching them. The Count says he's never heard of anything like this, and that the bridge seems intact, but the pavilion his family built is completely in ruins. He concludes that the bridge must have some kind of magical secret to protect itself. Our protagonist hears the Count muttering that there's no point in rebuilding the pavilion. He wonders if the bridge and the statues are all connected to the ancient magic. The noble agrees and says he finally understands the reason for this situation. He explains that the reason the bridge has that curve is a mystery he always wanted to know. Our hero notices the bridge and agrees that it was built in a very strange way. The Count reveals that there were many theories about the bridge, one of them being defense against undead monsters. He continues, saying that since there was never anything there was no way to know the reason. With a serious look, the noble concludes that this place was a trap all along. Our protagonist agrees with the Count and says no one would cross with meters falling. He concludes that a difficult to cross bridge is a simple but effective defense. The Count tells Aerd they need to go back and investigate that place again. Our hero agrees with the noble's decision and prepares to leave. The noble continues, saying the island is not safe and they need to go back as soon as possible. In a dangerous situation, the priority is to escape, not to take a stroll with children. The Count places a hand on Ared's head and seems to be saying goodbye. He asks our protagonist if he can protect Arya at that moment. Our hero is surprised by the question and doesn't know what to say. The Count reminds him that as a man, it is his duty to protect a young lady with his own life. With a satisfied smile, the noble says that was a good response from our hero. He explains that if something happens to his friend's granddaughter, he won't be able to face him. Our protagonist wonders why the Count is saying that all of a sudden. To everyone's surprise, the noble pushes the two of them away from him with all his strength. As the two fly through the air, the Count throws them to a safe place, far from the battle. Our hero screams in fear as he is thrown away by the Count. With a powerful kick, the noble propels the two even farther from danger. Our protagonist's jaw drops, not believing what the Count just did. The two fly through the skies while the statues watch the scene attentively. The statues begin to attack each other and the lake water becomes increasingly agitated. One of the statues recognizes the Count's strategy for them to cross the lake, but our hero turns and shouts for the Count, who stayed behind to face the statues. The noble leaps toward the statues with a determined look. He steps on one of the statues, using the momentum to jump even higher. With a powerful leap, he manages to reach the other end of the bridge safely. Our protagonist thinks he's probably fine and Arya is impressed. The red-haired girl says that was amazing and our hero agrees. She shouts with excitement at the scene she just witnessed, and our hero turns. But suddenly, the Count falls into the water and the statues surround him, ready to attack. Our protagonist shouts for Arya to hold on, and the two fall into the water. Arya screams in fear and asks what is happening. The statues continue to attack the Count, who is alone in the water to face them. Our protagonist prepares to do something as he flies through the skies with Arya. He remembers the Count's words about protecting the girl with his own life. With a determined look, our hero prepares to use his ice magic. He casts a powerful wave of ice, creating a giant slide for them to land on. One of the statues stares at him with its glowing eyes as he slides down the ice. Our protagonist slides down the slide while a meteor falls from the sky. He realizes the Count is leaving the landing to him, trusting in his abilities. Suddenly, one of the masked guards appears and seems worried about the situation. The smoke clears, revealing the beach and the calm lake water again. The Count praises our hero for managing to land safely with Arya. Our protagonist celebrates his success and Arya is impressed with the feat. He says that Arya's is more incredible because compared to a fire bird, a slide is simple. The Count concludes that if it weren't for him, they would have had to risk their lives on the bridge. Our protagonist thinks the Count's physical abilities are incredible and that he is no ordinary person. He thanks the noble, wondering if he can also use magic that way. The Count says he is the one who should be thankful for protecting Arya during the attack. The red-haired girl looks at our hero with eyes full of grateful tears. The noble says the sudden exercise has left him exhausted, and our hero doesn't believe it. Arya holds our protagonist's hand with a look of admiration. The Count praises Ared for already having recovered his mana, and he is confused by the compliment. He reveals that he planned to catch the two of them, but didn't expect our hero to pull that trick. Our protagonist understands that the Count was going to save them, and the guards come out of the water. The noble smiles and says he is happy everyone is safe after that attack. He decides they need to get out of there as soon as possible. As the place is dangerous, our hero decides he won't push himself too hard anymore, and that now he needs to retreat. He looks at the ice slide he created, seeming thoughtful about something. Arya calls him and tells him to hurry up, and our hero agrees immediately. In that split second, he managed to see the mana traces of the meteor strike. Back at the Count's mansion, night has fallen, and the sky is full of stars. A maid appears with a lantern to welcome them back. Our protagonist yawns sleepily, and Arya comments that it's an interesting way of speaking. The maid calls for the Count and asks if anything happened during the trip. Our hero looks at the maid with a curious expression. The maid reveals that Clark is passed out, and the Count is shocked by the news. She continues, saying the little girl is in critical condition, and the two are terrified.